Please rise. This is Sandusky County Court of Common Pleas. The Honorable Patricia Cosgrove presiding. You may be seated.
Be seated, folks. Okay, thank you. All right, we are here today in reference to the sentencing in the case of the State of Ohio versus Kyle Overmyer. The court previously conducted a pre-sentence investigation in this case number 16CR870, which has been shared with the attorneys in this case. Additionally, the court has received information in terms of letters from the defense, which I have also read in mitigation. So I'm going to turn to both sides and ask whether or not there's anything you wish to present at this time. Attorney Carol O'Brien.
Yes, Your Honor. I have a number of people who would like to give statements. There are 4: Chief Charlie Green from the Green Springs Police Department, Chief Bruce Gower from the Clyde Police Department, Mark Hofmann from the Bellevue Police Department, Chief of the Bellevue Police Department, and Chief Paul Whitaker from Gibsonburg.
All right, they may come forward.
Chief Green, would you like to come first? Where would you like them to stand, Your Honor?
Come on up here. Let's see you.
You're okay, or we're...
Yeah, this is fine. First state your name for the record.
My name is Charles Horn. I'm the Chief of the Green Springs Police Department.
Go ahead, Chief Green.
Your Honor, in August of last year, the Sheriff of Sandusky County made a visit to our office for the first time since becoming Sheriff. The reason for the Sheriff's visit was to offer help to us for a complicated case that 3 agencies in the county were working on. Mr. Overmyer assistant was going to assist our department with the financial aspect of that case, which involved paying a toll bill that the Green Springs Police Department didn't have the budget to pay for. After offering to pay for the toll bill, Mr. Overmyer also said he could assist us with other issues we had going on, getting rid of pills that were part of the take-back program. So he can collect those and get rid of the pills because he had a deal set up with the DEA to properly dispose of them. I was very surprised by how helpful the sheriff was that day. I accepted his help and found a great opportunity to take care of 2 problems the Green Springs Police Department currently had. Paying for a bill we couldn't afford and getting rid of some pills we had piling up in the office. The pills that were given to the sheriff that day so that they could possibly be disposed of through the DEA protocols. A few weeks later, I learned the pills were missing and not accounted for. I felt violated and angered and had been taken advantage of by someone who should have been beyond reproach. The idea that a man in the law enforcement position of leadership would use his position of trust to deceive the other officers and the public made me sick to my stomach. Mr. Overmyer's actions also made me question several other aspects and other events that occurred in the past. But there is no question about the devastation Mr. Overmyer has caused the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office. The path that he chose and the choices that he made have hurt all law enforcement agencies everywhere. Integrity and honesty are foundations upon which law enforcement is built. And Mr. Overmyer, with his actions, has harmed the public's perspective of police officers, deputies in our area, more than anyone will ever know. When we now respond to a call, people are unsure if they can trust us with information and evidence. The public now questions our integrity and saying things like, "I have pills in that room, please don't take them," when we respond to their calls in their home. Comments like these are a direct result of the environment that Mr. Overmyer has created in our communities. The personal attacks upon myself and others, through his attorney and by his own words, show the moral character of a man who would do anything to protect himself and others that he was sworn to protect and serve. Your Honor, when you consider Mr. Overmyer for sentencing, I ask that you not only consider the crimes that he's committed, but also the extra work and time that it's taking all of us to overcome his actions and devastation that he's caused the law enforcement community, as well as the sacred trust he has broken.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I should have asked, is anyone opposed being photographed? And I don't know if you want to stand over there.
Paul, why don't you stand?
Yeah.
There you go. Very good. Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right, that's good.
As Chief Paul Whitaker, Gibsonburg Police Department. I'm also representing the police chiefs in Sandusky County. Mr. Overmyer, you are now a convicted felon. You have committed crimes not only against the people of the state of Ohio and the residents of Sandusky County, you have betrayed your family and your friends. You, Mr. Overmyer, are not unlike any other petty criminal brought to justice, having given in to greed and lust for power. But beyond the normal title of convicted felon you bear, therein begins a vast and enormous difference between you and the average criminal. You have betrayed a trust given to you by the people you once served. You, Mr. Overmyer, have betrayed the citizens of Sandusky County who ratified your position as their sheriff for 8 years. You have betrayed your family by besmirching the family name, and for what? A few pieces of silver and political power. You, Mr. Overmyer, entrusted to lead a law enforcement agency, have done little to advance that once great department, leaving it to falter and flounder amid controversy after controversy. It is clear to see now that mismanaging your office over these 8 long years was not so much born from ignorance or inexperience, but total lack of empathy for the people you led and the people you served. I wish I could say your mishandling of murder investigations, death investigations, and the opiate problem in Sandusky County was due to your lack of knowledge or judgment in managing those matters, but I cannot. I conclude, Mr. Overmyer, that the justice you deprived so many victims was due to your own self-indulgent lust for power, denial of your own drug addiction, and pride. You placed your own selfish desires above your sworn oath to the people who trusted you, and when your acts were discovered, you further attempted to destroy the reputations of your own enforcement colleagues. The very people you were supposed to work with. You victimized those 4 chiefs when you took drugs from them. And when you were caught, you could muster no dignity and self-respect by admitting your discretions. You instead willfully and knowingly carried on a campaign of lies and deceit involving innocent supporters and family to try and untangle the web you so meticulously wove in your attempt to escape responsibility. Dragging the names and reputations of police officers through the mud and casting political motivation as the reason for BCI's investigation was not sufficient for you. You moved ahead and took advantage of the local news, social media, and unknowing supporters to further your cause. You manipulated a political party and got to constituents in an attempt to secure your elected office during your absence for no good reason other than to maintain control, the whole time laughing in the face of the court. You, Mr. Overmyer, by virtue of the oath you took as a peace officer in the state of Ohio and as an elected official charged by the people of Sandusky County, are held to a higher standard. You were trusted by the families of victims to provide justice. You were looked upon by subordinates for leadership, and you were given a clean bill by your local press to be telling the truth. When your picture is posted in a local newspaper as a good steward to the people, the police chiefs were being served notices by the press to turn over private text messages and emails regarding the investigation. You allowed us to be criticized, suspect, and damned by the media, knowing we could not defend ourselves lest we betray our own oath to preserve an ongoing investigation and to serve and protect. We sacrificed, you did not. And now it is time for you to pay for your misdeeds, not as a common criminal, a victim himself of a poor upbringing or environment. You must pay for your indiscretions at an equitable level for the position you held. You must be held to a higher standard.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Bruce Gower, Police Chief, City of Clyde. Your Honor, on August 19, 2015, I received a disturbing call from Chief Mark Hofmann asking for advice on the possibility that then Sheriff Kyle Overmyer had taken prescription drugs from their agency under the auspice of him having to deal with the DEA for disposal. Hofmann went on to say that he checked with Captain O'Connell at the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office, who stated the drugs were not there, and that these were picked up in April, and this was August. I advised Chief Kaufman he should report it to the DEA as it was their program, but that we should wait as we had a chiefs meeting and talk with the other chiefs. We were shocked to find out that Great Springs and Woodville, and later Fremont, had also had their pills picked up by the sheriff. We were already not on great terms with the former sheriff as we watched his department flounder under no direction, and he was not showing up for work or returning calls. I was running against Sheriff Overmyer in a primary, so our relationship was already pretty tense. Within a few days, we discovered there were 9 instances where he had either picked up or attempted to pick up narcotics at the 4 police departments. As time progressed, we, the 6 police chiefs, were verbally attacked by supporters and friends of Kyle Overmyer. He was telling everyone this was dirty politics by Chief Gallup, and that the other 5 chiefs were assisting me in trying to unseat him. I took exception to this, but was able to speak to it because of the ongoing investigation. The 5 chiefs, now 6, that I work with daily are hardworking men of integrity, honesty, and professionalism. I believe Fremont interim chief at that time, James White, took severe verbal abuse from the people in Fremont that backed Kyle Overmyer. His defense counsel even stated that as late as November 1st of 2016 in the Toledo Blade, that this was a plot by the chiefs to get me elected. And they all sat down and got their stories together. Andrew Maley calling the 6 police chiefs liars and that we were playing dirty politics, I feel was unprofessional and uncalled for, but he said it, and I believe he knew by that time Kyle Overmyer was guilty, or he should have. The damage done by Kyle Overmyer and his attorney to Sandusky County law enforcement is going and will be a long-lasting, taking years to repair. No one ever publicly has stated that the police chiefs were right in what we were doing, with the exception of the Sandusky Register. This investigation caused rifts from our small agencies to BCI and Bowling Green at the local level, as well as the administrative staff of BCI in London, up to and including the Attorney General of Ohio. I do believe Kyle Overmyer not only abused his authority as the elected sheriff of Sandusky County, but also the trust of the 64,000 people that live in Sandusky County. There has never been an apology from Kyle Overmyer or his sister, Clerk of Courts Tracy Overmyer, to the public for what they were doing to the police chiefs. There are ongoing investigations within the office of the sheriff on people that Kyle Overmyer stated he would take down with him. In some cases, people have nothing to do with this case except they are related to the people involved. Attempted intimidation of a police chief by a captain who lied, destroyed evidence, and then under Garrity admitted to that, was written up for a written warning. What a miscarriage of justice. While other deputies are attempted to be and take down for much less. Your Honor, I truly believe Kyle Overmyer is the worst kind of criminal, one with a badge, that used his position to try and destroy witnesses and bully his way around. I would like to see the maximum penalty under law assigned to Kyle Overmyer, his pension money used to pay his fines and costs, and returned to Sandusky County for his thefts and wages during the time. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Carol O'Brien and Andrew King, Ohio BCI, and you, Judge Cosgrove, for your service to the citizens of this county. This was a case that many have said thanks, but no thanks, and you all stepped up and served with distinction.
My name is Mark Hofmann. I'm the Chief of Police of Bellevue. It is simultaneously with great satisfaction and with great disappointment that I write this statement. With the conviction of former Sheriff Kyle Overmyer of numerous criminal acts, I am disappointed for his family, his former employees at the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office, and the taxpayers and citizens of the county, as well as the law enforcement community itself. More than 26 years ago, I swore an oath to uphold the law and protect the citizens of my jurisdiction. Although I have admittedly failed in some ways along that journey, I have always taken my promise seriously. It is clear that Mr. Overmyer only took his oath to mean that he was entitled to take advantage of his position and the faith that his citizens had placed in him. I am proud to stand with the other police chiefs of Sandusky County and found them to be men of honor and integrity. Those characteristics were called into question by Mr. Overmyer as defense counsel during the course of this investigation. It took great restraint and adherence to principles and values to withstand an aura of doubt and disbelief that surrounded them. At a time when law enforcement officers are being examined with the most intense scrutiny, Mr. Overmyer added fuel to that fire by demonstrating a complete lack of respect for the oath he swore and the men and women he served with for a singular purpose of accomplishing his own desires. In my opinion, he is the worst kind of convict, a cop who was given authority and trust by his community to protect them, and instead took every advantage of them that he could. He then lied about the issues and tried to blame the men who discovered the crimes and had the courage to pursue them in the face of skepticism and doubt. I am truly and deeply sorry for his family and all that he has put them through. I feel the same for his deputies, some of which I know personally and know them to be fine, thoughtful men and women who are dedicated to their job. I would like to sincerely thank Delaware County Prosecutor Carol O'Brien and Andrew King for their tireless work and the faith in the police chiefs in this case. The amount of work and preparation was daunting, to say the least. In closing, it is my opinion that Mr. Overmyer is not the average criminal, but was an elected official empowered with the public's trust. He was keenly aware his actions were wrong and obviously felt he was above the law. He failed to observe a basic moral idea that to whom much is given, much will be required.
Thank you, Chief.
That's the last Chief.
Yes, Your Honor.
Prosecutor O'Brien, is there anything else that you wish to present on behalf of the state of Ohio?
Yes, Your Honor. The overriding purposes of Ohio felony sentencing are set forth in the statute, and they are to protect the public from future crime and to punish the offender. Sentences imposed must be reasonably calculated to achieve those purposes and at the same time not demean the seriousness. The statute gives us a number of factors to review, and I'm going to go through those, Your Honor, and I'm going to go through those, and as I go through those, I'm going to bring up what I think is in support of those factors on behalf of the state. When you're looking at the more serious factors as set out in Revised Code 292912B, the first issue I think we have to address is who are the victims in this case, and there are multiple victims. You heard from a number of the victims already today, the police chiefs who had drugs stolen from what they thought were these very safe drug disposal boxes. The victims are also the citizens of Sandusky County who place their trust in Kyle Overmyer to act as the sheriff and to do what is right and to uphold the laws that he swore to uphold. And presumably he made that oath on the Bible. The victims are also the members of the sheriff's office and the deputies and the employees, the corrections officers and others who were in the office at the time Mr. Overmyer held the position of sheriff, as well as those who are in the office now. The doctors he deceived into prescribing him opioids over a course of time when he was getting multiple prescriptions. The staff members at the sheriff's office who unwittingly assisted him in filing false reports and getting money that he was not entitled to. And Your Honor, probably, and if you read the letters provided for by Mr. Overmyer and his counsel, his family are victims in this matter. His family, his friends who believed in him and want to truly continue to believe that he did not commit these crimes. The victim suffered serious physical, psychological, or economic harm. Mr. Overmyer stole a significant amount of funds and resources from the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office. We have agreed upon a restitution amount for that in terms of the one theft in office charge of $24,000. He caused the county, the Sheriff's Office, economic harm when he stole from the Furtherance of Justice Fund. As I'm sure the court is aware, the Furtherance of Justice Fund is a fund that's provided that equals 1/2 of the elected official's salary. The prosecutor's office gets that, the sheriff's office gets that. It needs to be used for furtherance of justice. On 2 separate occasions, Mr. Overmyer requested funds from the furtherance of justice funds and indicated those were for drug deals. And to this day, he contends that's what happened, that that's what those were used for. Initially, when he spoke with Ms. Flood, who conducted the pre-sentence investigation, he said, I never took any of the money, it just sat in my drawer. And then he changed his story and said, well, yeah, maybe I took some money out of it. The fact of the matter is, Your Honor, had we gone to trial, the evidence would have shown that there were bills. We had the pictures of the bills that were left sent to the Bureau of Engraving that were dated after the date of the last withdrawal of those funds. Additionally, with the first withdrawal of funds, $400 went directly into his personal
Are you
account.
saying the bills were created after the money was taken out of the FOJ fund?
Yes, the ones that he said were,
Drug buy money?
yes,
The 1,000 and the 1,500?
yes, ma'am. And so at that point in time, and during that same time period, and I'm not sure Mr. Overmyer was aware, but his detectives who were doing the narcotics and were getting furtherance of justice funds for their accurate investigations were keeping a detailed spreadsheet. So when they were asked about this, they said, we never received that money. Also, I would indicate, Your Honor, that when Mr. Overmyer cashed those checks, he cashed one at Impact Credit Union and one at Krogan, Old Fort, and when the money was turned back over, they were in envelopes from Krogan National Bank. So they were not, the money that he says he never used any of was actually in totally different envelopes. It's rare that a person gets an envelope from a bank and then puts other money that they took out. In the and that goes with the tampering with records. The doctors. Sometimes we forget that doctors can be victims too. In this instance, because of the way these prescriptions were made, these doctors had a fear for their license. They were under investigation by the medical board because of their prescribing practices, brought on by Kyle Overmyer's going to 3 different doctors and lying to them about whether or not he was getting drugs from any other person. And frankly, Your Honor, in terms of, and we have one misdemeanor on this, which may not seem to be a big deal. You fill out that ethics report every year. I fill out that ethics report. Every elected official and many state employees have to fill out that report. And granted, we make mistakes. No doubt about that. I have called and said, oh, I forgot to put something on. Mr. Overmyer admitted to Ms. Flood that I forgot to put the income from BSE. If that was the only thing that was not on the form of which he was indicted, I wouldn't be standing before you here talking about this. Mr. Overmyer, in 2014, had somewhere in the area $150,000 to $180,000 in consumer debt, spread over various credit cards. Most of those were not reported. He was severely delinquent in paying a number of accounts, which then made them hit the $1,000 mark, and therefore it had to be reported. And he reported very, very few of those. And one of those reasons that we have those ethics reports is to give the people of the jurisdiction in which you're in the ability to make a right decision. Can this person run that office? And I would submit to you that he knowingly didn't turn those bills over. He did not note those bills. He didn't think they were important. The offender, the third factor, the offender held public office or position of trust in the offense related to the position or the office. He was the elected sheriff of Sandusky County. He was to uphold those laws. He stole the money from the furtherance of justice account, which was an account held by the sheriff's office. He had a furtherance of justice account credit card that he used like a petty cash account. He used it to pay for lunches. He used it to pay for travel. And then, if he was questioned, the response was, I'm the sheriff, it's okay. And so it kept going. and no one could do anything about it. And then he created fraudulent documents to cover up, and that's where the tampering of the records comes from. He failed to accurately account for the funds on the annual reports, duty by law to do so. Failed to report the income on his ethics reporting records, and he continues to deny that this happened. I didn't use it. Maybe I used some, but I paid it back. He didn't pay it back until the former prosecutor, John Meyer, started investigating it and started asking for the public records to get the underlying documents. And I've listened to a lot of jail calls. I may be the only person in history who listens to jail calls while she's decorating a Christmas tree, Your Honor. And I want to read to you some quotes. In a phone conversation with Melanie Overmyer. They did this to me, I didn't do nothing wrong. Phone call to Cheryl Overmyer. This is all bullshit, it's a setup. Phone call to Dana Miller. I've gotten zapped in every way. I haven't done anything. Phone call to Melanie Overmyer. I didn't do anything bad. Phone call to a number I didn't identify. They did me wrong all over a crossbow. Phone call to Melanie Overmyer. There's maybe a couple things how I handled the money that could sting me. These people jammed me up. Phone call to Dana Miller. I have to say that I have a problem and took money. I have to say stuff I really didn't do. Phone call to Cheryl Overmyer. Got to say things I didn't do to go through. Phone call to Cheryl Overmyer. Making me plead to stuff, threatening me with this and that. Phone call to Melanie Overmyer. I can't believe what people did to me. Phone call to Melanie Overmyer. Financial stuff, taking hits for stuff that I was audited, especially from a guy that was talking shit about me. I didn't do anything bad. Phone call to Melanie Overmyer. Bulk of that stuff, I didn't do anything. Someone else was responsible. I took the brunt of it. Phone call to Cheryl Overmyer and Paul Overmyer. I didn't hurt nobody, no restitution. I didn't hook anybody for money. Phone call to Melanie Overmyer. It isn't as much as you think. Phone call to Melanie Overmyer. It wasn't criminal activity, just sadness. I didn't do anything to hurt anybody. Phone call to Dana Miller. I didn't steal any money, I mishandled it, now that I look at it. Phone call to Curtis Hurt. Financial crisis. I didn't use it, meaning the money, for anything illegal. Too many things after me. Finances, everything. Never spent money on anything illegal. Phone call to Melanie Overmyer. I can't help what happened to me. Phone call to Dana Miller. I'm not some criminal. I just need counseling and help. I'm broken and need fixed. Phone call to Dana Miller, which by the way was yesterday. I'm not a criminal, just fucked up along the way. Phone call to Dana Miller yesterday. I'm not bad. I just want help to be a good person. The evidence would show that Mr. Overmyer's money was spent on illegal things. Steroids were found in his office after the court kept him from the office. The steroids bottles had his DNA, and the needles had his DNA on it. Kyle Overmyer indicated that in high school years he used steroids, and I submit that he had gone back to that. The tampering, Your Honor, he spent the money as if it was his own petty cash account in the thefts from the FOJ. He didn't have to raise any campaign money because he just used the furtherance of justice account. He let the county pay for his political advertising. He took his family on vacation to Nashville, taking the county car because he said taking a personal car and getting reimbursed for mileage because he said he couldn't use a county car down there. Well, his chief deputy did, and they caravanned down. So the chief deputy used the county car, and then not only did Mr. Overmyer inflate the mileage for the trip down there, he then used a credit card to put gas in his car even though he was getting mileage. He used the FOJ card to pay for room service, including $43 for 6 cans of pop at 10 o'clock at night. He routinely paid for meals over the daily reimbursement rate, and he bought lunch whenever because maybe they talked about office stuff at lunch. He used the FOJ to buy a computer that was never seen in the office. No one knew what it was for. It was a MacBook, no idea. And when that MacBook was returned to the investigators, he had wiped it clean. And then he tampered with the records to cover up the theft. Particularly offensive, Your Honor, is the stealing of the drugs from the take-back box. And I'll tell you what, he indicates that he never did that. I didn't steal them. I was nosy. I wanted to see what was in there. That's what he tells Miss Flood. A whole bag of drugs came up missing. Those were from Bellevue. And the other thing that was found in his office when it was being cleaned out after his suspension were 2 bottles of pain medication. One for a Judith Mervyn, one for an Earl Pranky. And with Mr. Pranky, the investigators traced it back. That drug bottle was placed into the Bellevue take-back box. It was empty when the investigators found it. It contained a narcotic. It contained a scheduled drug. Judith Mervyn is dead, and her pills were put in the take-back box. Cheryl Overmyer's pills, pill bottle, empty pill bottle for pain medication, was found in Mr. Overmyer's office. Cheryl Overmyer is his mother. Miscellaneous pills were found on the floor, along with the steroids. What did he tell the chiefs? You heard the chiefs tell you that Kyle Overmyer, in one instance, in the entire time he'd been sheriff, had never been to the office to talk with that chief, and he showed up. Oh, and by the way, I'll take your drugs. I have a deal with the DEA. Investigation indicated that there was no deal with the DEA. He had no authority to take those drugs, and yet he did. And then when he was confronted by 2 of his own detectives and asked, "Where's that bag of pills from Bellevue?" "Well, I put them in the evidence locker." "Well, I looked, they're not there." "They must be there." "No, they're not there." So then they went and looked through all the boxes. And that bag of pills, and the evidence would have shown that approximately 50% of those would have been controlled substances, probably narcotics, probably pain medication. It's never found. There's a person here that you didn't hear from, Sheriff Mark Vasilishin from Wood County. Good friend of Mr. Overmyer's. Tried to take Mr. Overmyer under his wing when he first became sheriff. Tried to help him out. In March of 2015, they went to lunch, breakfast, maybe. Mark Vasilishin says, "Hey, I need to stop and pick up the drugs from Perrysburg, PD." Kyle says, "Hey, can I look at those?" So Mark Vasilishin left the sheriff, then Sheriff Overmyer, in a room alone with those drugs. Ostensibly, it was, you get better drugs up here. You get different drugs than we do in Sandusky County. Regardless, he left with a bag of drugs. That was in March of 2015. And I'm not going to talk about the others, Your Honor, since they went through this. The dates are important, though, Your Honor, because Mr. Overmyer was getting prescriptions from 3 different doctors through 2014 and then the beginning of 2015. In 2015, he contacted one of his employees, the jail doctor, and said, my pain medication was stolen and my heart medication. So the doctor did a brief exam, prescribed more Percocets, prescribed Flexeril, and prescribed an anti-inflammatory. Sheriff Overmyer, at the time, went to a different pharmacy to get those filled, paid cash, did not submit those receipts to his insurance company, and did not get either the Flexeril or the anti-inflammatory fill, only the pain medication. Dr. Furlong said he wasn't going to prescribe him any more drugs. Dr. Hofmann said he wasn't going to prescribe him any more drugs. Dr. Morrow said he wasn't going to prescribe him any more drugs. He received his last prescription. He filled his last prescription in February and took the drugs from Wood County in March of 2015, and then proceeded to visit the other other chief's offices to get the drugs from the drug disposal. Do you need some water?
It's cold coffee.
Two detectives in the sheriff's office tried to talk to him about this. Do you have a problem? Can we help you? Let us help you if you have a problem. I don't have a pill problem. I don't have a drug problem. I have a wife and a money problem. When the chiefs tried to address it with him, they were accused of being politically motivated. On 11/22, in a phone call to Melanie Overmyer, I didn't do anything bad. That take-back stuff, no. Phone call to Melanie Overmyer on 11/22. I'm not what people made me out to be. The bulk of that stuff, I didn't do anything. Someone else is responsible. I took the brunt of it. In a phone call to Cheryl Overmyer and Paul Overmyer, I really didn't do anything wrong. I didn't know where the pills came from or where it was. I wasn't taking or using nothing. In November 24th, I went down the wrong road with the medicine. And again, I wasn't taking from the take-back box. I'm not a criminal, I'm just soft. What did he say about Dr. Hofmann? I won't go see Dr. Hofmann. She's part of the problem. In a phone conversation to Melanie Overmyer, I haven't taken medicine. I have taken medicine, but I wasn't abusing. I have no shakes and no withdrawing. To Melanie Overmyer again, I pled guilty to something I didn't do, need to get out, do things to make it better. It's not fair. I need to be with my family. Phone call to Dana Miller. Counseling. I'm going to counseling. Shows I'm showing initiative. It sucks that I have to do that. To Dana Miller, I have to say I have a problem and took money. To Melanie Overmyer, I have to say I'm having a problem with medication and using money. To Melanie Overmyer, I didn't take drugs except medication. I haven't taken since January 2015. I told them not to give it to me. Dr. Furman and Dr. Morrow cut him off. Conversations with Dr. Morrow or Dr. Hofmann indicate that she had talked to him that if things didn't get better, she was cutting him off because he was showing addictive behavior. He also says he went cold turkey in January 2015. We filled a prescription in February 2015 and then started taking the drugs from the drug take-back boxes. November 24th, he says, I didn't mean to do drugs, I quit turkey. Phone call to Melanie Overmyer, it's not criminal activity, it's just sadness. I didn't do anything to hurt anybody. To Curtis Hurt, I went cold turkey. Financial crisis, I didn't use it for anything illegal. Prescription became medicine for a head. I went cold turkey, but my mind never got straight. Too many things after me, finances, everything. What happened at the sheriff's office during this time? There's real fear in that sheriff's office. He let a well-run office deteriorate. He failed to show up for work. He started an investigation into a detective who started looking into the issues. And that investigation began after that detective started talking to me. He ordered that all the phones and that all the internet communications and everything on the detective's computer be looked at. He did manage to get him to resign. He had as a duty to file the inaccurate ethics statement. And he chose not to do that. And it's not just one little thing off, Your Honor. The offenders, he had some credit cards that he owed over $20,000 on, $18,000, $19,000. I would also note, Your Honor, that during this time period, he was opening up credit cards in he and his wife's name. And during the phone conversations, it became apparent that his wife was not aware of these credit cards. And when she confronted him, he said, I was just doing it to get a lower rate, which would have made sense, except credit cards he opened didn't go to pay off anything. They just build up into large balances. Additionally, during that time period, he had been employed by a private investigation company called Eris, and was paid on at least 3 occasions, at least until, and this has nothing to do with Kyle Overmyer, Your Honor, but the principal in Eris was arrested and is currently in federal prison. It had nothing to do with Mr. Overmyer. The offender's occupation obliged the offender to prevent the offense and to bring those to commit it to justice. That was his job. That was his main job. You protect the courts and you preserve the peace. And he totally chose to disregard this. His reputation, occupation, or office facilitated the offense or is likely to influence others' conduct. Again, the chief law enforcement of the county. He's the duly elected sheriff. Without that position, he can't get the drugs from the drug take-back boxes. He can't get the money from the furtherance of justice. He can't tamper with the records. And in the instance of the doctors, one question, well, if you were having concerns, why did you keep doing this? Why did you keep giving him these pills? He was the sheriff. We trusted him. The offender's relationship with the victim facilitated the offense. Each chief thought they could trust the sheriff. Sheriff Vasilishin trusted him so much he left him alone with the drugs. And I will tell you, in speaking with Sheriff Vasilishin, he will never, ever, ever do anything like that again. The doctors all developed a relationship with Kyle Overmyer. He had been Dr. Morrow's patient for quite some time. Dr. Furlong was employed at the sheriff's office. And frankly, there was some fear that if he didn't prescribe the medication, he may not have a job. And then Dr. Hofmann, a distant family member, friends of family, they've had dinner at each other's houses, and he's trustworthy, he's the sheriff. Less serious factors, no way any of the victims induced or facilitated the crime. The offender did not act under strong provocation. He did not cause or expect to cause physical harm to person or property. I have a question mark by that one, Your Honor, and I'm going to let you make your decision on that. I think if you're stealing drugs and you're using those drugs, that you should pretty much expect to cause physical harm to persons. Maybe yourself. And actually, Your Honor, we don't know what he was doing with them.
these drugs?
We have no idea. We know that a whole box of drugs came up, or a whole bag of drugs came up missing from Bellevue. We don't know what he was doing. So whether or not he was keeping those, or they were going outside in the community, we don't know. There are no grounds to mitigate the offender's conduct. The theft of money, he had spent himself in such a deep financial hole. The $150,000 to $180,000 I was talking about did not include his home and did not include his car, the one personal vehicle they had. He spent money on gifts for a clerk at the sheriff's office. He spent money on Dana Miller. He spent a lot of money on himself. In fact, in one of the phone conversations, his wife indicated, you didn't buy those jeans at Goodwill. True religion jeans, Your Honor, and if you know anything about jeans, they're quite expensive. No, I bought them at the outlet. And his daughter says, Dad, we found the receipt. So while this was going on, while he's under indictment, he's still spending money. The theft of drugs started immediately after his last prescription was filled in February 2015 and continued until the chiefs figured it out. He was confronted by his detectives, indicated no problem. He took the money from the FOJ and then covered it up over a course of time, and then lied, and then tried to cover it up again by giving money back that obviously was not the money he originally took. Recidivism more likely. He wasn't on bail awaiting sentencing or anything like that. He does not have a history of criminal convictions. He has not responded favorably to sanctions imposed previously in adult or juvenile court. He did violate his bond conditions, Your Honor. There is a pattern of alcohol or drug use related to the offense. And until recently, and frankly, since I don't know about the sincerity, but until recently, he didn't acknowledge it. In fact, on November 14th, in a phone call to Dana Miller, counseling shows I'm showing initiative. Sucks that I have to do that. He's still not accepting responsibility. He actually said that he didn't know he couldn't go to more than one doctor. For goodness sakes, Your Honor, he was a narcotics detective. How can you not know that? He wants to tell you all about the big, he wants to talk about the big bad drug cases he handled. And use that as a reason why he can't go to prison. But at the same time, he wants to tell you he didn't understand the illegality of his actions. Recidivism is less likely. He does not have any prior juvenile or adult adjudications or convictions. Offender led a law-abiding life for a significant number of years. And I put a big maybe on that one, Your Honor, and I'll tell you why. Because in his PSI, he indicates to Ms. Flood that he was using steroids back in high school. And then he apparently started using them again. That indicates he was not abiding by the law during that time, and it might have even been through high school and through college. And this behavior has been ongoing. It started very early on in his career, at least in 2009. He started spending money. His ethics reports have been wrong forever. He committed the offense under circumstances unlikely to recur. Well, he's never going to be sheriff again. He's never going to hold elected office. But if he's ever in a position with access to either money or drugs, I believe that it is more likely than not that it will happen again. He shows genuine remorse. Now, Your Honor, he regrets he was caught. He still blames other people, still refuses to accept responsibility. He blames Tracy, Tracy Overmyer, saying she tries to run his life. Melanie never wanted to listen to him. She supposedly blamed him for everything. Her dad caused problems all the time. That's why he doesn't have anybody. And it seems he hasn't learned. He talks about a person that he and Dana Miller are having a conversation, and he says, "I'm not a fan. He turned on me. I'll find out who my friends are after all this is over." And it wasn't said in, it was said in a more threatening way than gee, I guess I don't have so many friends. And I'm not some criminal. I just need counseling and help. I'm broken and need to be fixed. The behavior by Kyle Overmyer has tarnished the reputation of each and every law enforcement officer through the state of Ohio. Every sheriff's office, every deputy, every police chief, every police officer. The harm, when we're talking about discretion on whether to impose consecutive or concurrent terms, is it necessary to protect or to punish? Yes. Is it disproportionate? No. We have 2 or more multiple offenses. We have 14 offenses. They are separate offenses, Your Honor. And the harm is great and it's unusual because it has affected every single citizen in Sandusky County. Consecutive terms are needed to protect the public in this instance. Your Honor, Mr. Overmyer needs to be punished. And it's the state's position that punishment, the appropriate punishment, is a prison sentence. I, as a rule, do not represent to the court what I am asking, mainly because in Delaware County, no matter what I say, the judge does something different. I trust in the judge's discretion. I will say that this is a severe case. This has taken place over a period of 7 years, 6 years. It has affected numerous people. He has not shown any remorse. One of the reasons I listen to phone calls, Your Honor, and I listen to them in every case, is because I think it's important that you as judge know what each person is saying overall, not just what he writes in a 4-page letter to you that he spent 4 days writing and crafting. Not just when he stands up in court today and says, "Oh, I admit everything I did and I'm really sorry about what I did." Because the real test of a person is what they say in private to those that they know and love. And he has very loudly and clearly said he's only doing this because it's the easiest thing to do, not because he's guilty. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Prosecutor O'Brien. Now hear from the defense, Attorney Miley.
Just one thing, Your Honor, at first. The letters from the family, as I read them, said we'd like to have him back the way he used to be. I didn't read the family saying he didn't do it or they didn't believe he did it. They said he used to be a good guy, something went wrong, now we'd like him back. She said they were saying he didn't do it. That's not the way I read the letters from his family members. And all these listened to phone calls was basically to his mother and his wife, still trying to make alibis to the people closest to him. The chiefs talked, and I understand how they feel they've really been had, embarrassed that they trusted him. I don't agree their reputation is tarnished. They were taken advantage of. I don't have any problem with trusting them, and I don't subscribe that when there's one bad apple, it means the whole barrel are bad. I don't believe cops are bad because one guy does something wrong. A lot of what we heard, the prosecutor publicly stated before that my client has a drug problem. One of the chiefs said he has a drug addiction. Probably 70% of her presentation had to do with drugs, and I think we can stipulate he obviously had a drug problem. And that was undoubtedly a driving force in why he wanted pills. And, you know, you say she don't know about her sincerity when he admits it, but she knows he meant it for sure when he says something against him. I ain't gonna make any alibis for this guy because he doesn't deserve alibis, but we gotta keep this in perspective. None of us, I think, in this room except him, can possibly know what it is to get in a situation like this, be a public official, and then have it explode. And the shame beyond the normal defendant. At a national level, we saw it with Nixon and Clinton. They both denied it up until there was something that they couldn't get by. What this man couldn't get by finally was that the money that he claimed he kept all along from when he withdrew it had to be a lie, because some of it was sent from the mint after the withdrawal was made. When he was confronted with that by us, finally he knew it was up, just like some of these national guys when they knew it was finally over. The lying had to be stopped. There's a complaint, he doesn't properly say, "I'm sorry, please accept my apology." We have here a competent, aggressive prosecutor, and he knows that, to the extent complaining about buying cans of pop. We know we have a judge who has a reputation but for being fair but firm. I don't know how more eloquently you can say, "I'm wrong," than to plead guilty to all those counts. Not an Alfred plea, not a no contest plea, guilty. Knowing that he's got no control of what's going to happen. If that isn't accepting responsibility, I don't know what is, because he's got no control. He can still try to keep his family believing something. He can still try to delude himself, but he made a knowing plea of guilty, knowing it's over, and it's not up to him anymore. And if somebody says, "Well, I'd feel better because he would say he's sorry," I don't know what more a guy could do but expose himself for a lot of incarceration. As to the drugs, there's no question, I think, from what she said. This is a guy with a drug problem, and I think treatment for that is indicated rather than just incarceration. The one charge they made, well, it was a couple counts, I think, for a couple years, that he didn't report all these consumer debt. $150,000 to $180,000 in consumer debt. This man was in serious financial trouble. And one of the things remarkable about this case to me is that while there's restitution on a lot of items like hotel rooms and stuff like that, actually taking money, he succumbed to that temptation twice. Once in 2013 he wrote a check. Once in 2015 he wrote a check. One was for $1,000, one was for $1,500. I don't remember which is which. He's not a thief in the sense of a lot of embezzlers, where it's on an ongoing basis and it's a lot of money taken. He succumbed to temptation twice. He's guilty. He pled guilty, but we just can't pretend that he's a thief that's always taken money from the FOJ. He abused it on some stuff. Some of it were like donations to people, probably to prop himself up, but he didn't personally get anything out of it other than maybe looking like a good guy. The sentencing guidelines, the prosecutor left off the one thing there's two pretty overriding purposes, and one is to use the minimum sanctions the court determines to accomplish the purposes without imposing unnecessary burden on the state or local government resources. Unless we're going to say that any time a public official steals money, we absolutely have to throw the book against them. I think in this particular case, what's happened to him so far, to be brought in leg irons on initial appearance, what he was put through in public ridicule before the case even got filed, the time he's already served, the obvious nature he's got a drug problem. I think the man needs help. I think he committed crimes, but I don't think it means throwing the book at him unless we're going to say every time there's a public thief, we're going to throw the book at him. We shared with the court some other recent cases I assume we got on other comparable people. There's no defense. I think it's clear. I mean, the more we talk about having this drug problem all along, tells me there was a drug problem. And one of the reasons that I think that people trusted him was before he went off the deep end, he must have done some good things, or they wouldn't have trusted him. He must have done some good things, or the previous sheriff would have made him a detective. He must have done some good things, or they wouldn't have appointed him to the vacancy when the sheriff died. He went off the rails, and it's probably because of drugs, bolstered mostly by the presentation the prosecutor just made. What we got is a guy with a drug problem. We don't have your garden variety thief that just steals because he's, a guy that's a teller that can get money because he wants to join the country club. That's the man you have before you. He's in your hands now, and that's really all I wanted to say.
All right, thank you, Attorney Ryan. I'd like Mr. Overmyer to come forward with his counsel. All right, Mr. Overmyer, is there anything that you would like to say to the court prior to sentencing, or anything you would like to say to the police chiefs or other law enforcement that are here today?
First of all, I'd like to apologize to you, Mr. King, Ms. O'Brien, BCI, and all the investigators. Actually, a lot of the media, I made a lot of friends along the way. The police chiefs especially. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry for what I've done. I take full responsibility today, and I do have remorse. I really do, Ms. O'Brien. I want you to know that. I'm tough. And if you did listen to phone conversations of me crying, and I never cried until everything hit, and I've hit rock bottom, and I apologize for that. And before that, I was in denial. I was in denial of my problem. Sometimes I just think that I was too proud, and I thought this couldn't happen to me. And when I went on to tell my kids about it, they thought their dad was, superhuman. Well, there's no such thing as superhuman. And I've let my family down, the taxpayers, the commissioners, and most of all, my kids. My kids, I love them more than anything, ma'am. And I'm going to tell you, I promised them I would get better. And hopefully you can help me do that if you allow me to get some help. And I do apologize to everyone, you people that are in black that used to work under my colors, and everybody of the courts. I apologize. I am truly sorry.
The court has reviewed the pre-sentence investigation in this case. I've reviewed all of the letters that were submitted by defendant's counsel. I've listened to the oral statements here today, including the oral statement of the defendant. What troubles the court is if you were just going to mobile doctors and using drugs or doctor shopping and because of a drug issue, that's one thing. But to take the position of trust that you've had, that you were elected to, and to use that position for your own personal gain, while not only just criticizing the people who took issue with you, but maligning them in public, attempting to destroy their reputations. I mean, every chief of police in this audience, and anyone who's not here was a member of that association, they ought to be commended. They knew something was going on with you and it was wrong, and they took it seriously, their duty. Now, as a law enforcement officer, you can use your badge as a shield or as a sword. They used it as a shield, you used it as a sword. You took a position of trust and you stole from the taxpayers of Sandusky County. You used this FOJ fund like it was your own petty cash fund. And I want to ask you some questions here about that were raised in the pre-sentence investigation. Now, this money that you took, $2,500 in 2013 and 2015, you requisitioned this money for drug buys and drug investigations. You had no records of it, and then when the law enforcement investigators confronted you with it, that's when you paid it back. I mean, what did you do with that money?
I would use it just like if I needed 40 bucks here, 40 bucks there, and then I would replace it. That's what I did.
We didn't replace it until the investigators were hot on your trail and started questioning you about it.
No, they asked me. I think if you looked at the receipt, when they asked me for it, I went and I handed it to them because I had already had it replaced. But Mr. Myers did bring it up, and it was already replaced.
All right, I want to also talk to you about, well, of course, but you made the cash deposits into your personal account.
And, right, that was not from, I'll tell you that right now, that was not from that. That was from selling some stuff, clothes and knickknacks.
But a trace of one of the checks goes into your account.
No, $400 cashed it.
All right, then the FOJ ledger, the FOJ annual expense report, you failed to properly document that?
Possibly if there was any receipts, and what we would always do is go back and type up what was used for. My fiscal officer handles all of that for me. I'd have to look at it.
And then you use the FOJ funds to pay for your memberships in organizations and clubs such as the Kiwanis Club, Exchange Club, Monticello Lodge of Masons, Rotary Club, and then of course there's hundreds of dollars of undocumented expenses for hotels, meal expenses, conferences, dues to other agencies. I mean, what were you thinking going into the FOJ fund? That money is supposed to be used for law enforcement purposes, primarily drug investigations. I mean, what were you thinking about using that money to pay your own personal dues?
I was wrong, ma'am. I was wrong. And I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry.
All right, when you say you're sorry,
I am.
This is the first time I heard about these jail calls, is today, when probably is the first time you heard them. As recently as this week, last week, you're telling people, hey, you know, you're maintaining the same thing. I'm not a criminal. These people jam me up. Everybody else is wrong. And now you want to throw yourself on the mercy of the court and ask for a lenient sentence when you don't take responsibility?
I am taking responsibility, and I have with my family, my kids, my mom and dad. If they listened to them this morning, I called to apologize to my family and tell them I'm sorry. I mean, I take full responsibility. I am wrong.
Well, when you talk to this lady and your wife and other members, other people, and you make statements like this, it doesn't sound like you're really sorry. You're just
That was,
you're
and I'm
sorry
going to
that
tell
you're
you,
caught.
well, no, honestly, that's before everything has hit home, and I'm not in denial anymore. I'm telling you, I'm not in denial. I've went to seek a counselor, and I know what she said about phone calls. I need counseling, and it makes me feel better when I'm counseling. I even went to AA.
All right, The court has considered the purposes and principles of sentencing as delineated in Revised Code 292911 and 292912. To not sentence you to prison, in the court's opinion, would demean the seriousness of the offense and not adequately protect society from future criminal conduct by yourself and others. The court, having considered the minimum sentence, finds that would not be an appropriate sentence and would be disproportionate to the appropriate sentence in this case, considering the crimes that you have committed. The court also has considered, pursuant to 292914C4, that consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public from future criminal conduct by yourself and others, that you pose a danger to the public, and that at least 2 or more of the multiple offenses were committed as part of the course of conduct, and the harm is so great or unusual that no single prison term can adequately reflect the seriousness of the conduct. And the reason I say that is, everyday police officers get up and they put their lives on the line. They're already maligned in the public. The overwhelming majority of police officers are fine, loyal, hardworking individuals. And what you've done creates an impression that all cops, all police officers are corrupt, that all police chiefs in position of power are corrupt and they use public funds for their own purpose. So the damage done is not just to you and the innocent bystanders such as your family, which is always the situation. It is to law enforcement in Sandusky County, and every man and woman who puts on a uniform in the morning, goes out there, risks their lives for us. You have made them less trustful in the eyes of the public, and that is serious damage. I've also considered the economic harm to Sandusky County of over $24,000. The fact that your position of sheriff facilitated your ability to have access to those FOJ funds and steal them, steal the lock boxes, the drugs, whatever you did with them. And the court finds that, as opposed to what you say here today in court and the letter you sent me that you have remorse, those phone calls made just a few days ago indicate you don't have any remorse, you're selfish, you're self-absorbed. Because if your children don't motivate you to be a better person and admit what you did, I don't know what is. You're just the classic narcissistic personality.
Your Honor.
You had your opportunity.
I'm sorry, I did. I have those kids. You don't get it.
Okay, I do get
I'm
it.
sorry.
I do get it. You don't get it. Or you wouldn't be sitting over there, standing over there. All right, the court, for all of these reasons, I'm going to mete out the following sentence. Punishment is necessary in this case for all of the reasons that the court indicated. All right, in reference to counts 3, 11, and 15, which are deception to obtain a dangerous drug, felonies of the 4th degree, the court is going to sentence you to 1 year in prison on each of those counts. In reference to count 19, filing a false financial report, a misdemeanor of the 1st degree, the court is going to sentence you to 6 months in the Sandusky County Jail. In reference to tampering with government records, felonies of the 3rd degree, in counts 27 and 29, the court is going to impose a prison sentence of 36 months. The court's going to run those sentences concurrently with one another. Now, because the court considers the harm that you caused by your theft, not only of the drugs, but the theft in office, as damaging the reputation of every decent police officer, law enforcement officer in this state, the harm is so great, and there must be a deterrent. The court is going to order the following sentences in this case. In reference to the theft in office charge, as contained in count 27 and 29. The court is going to sentence you to 1 year in prison on the theft of dangerous drugs, a felony of the 4th degree, as contained in counts 39, 40, 41, 42, and 43. I'm going to sentence you to 1 year in prison. Those sentences for theft in office and theft of dangerous drugs are going to run concurrently with one another, but consecutively with the 3-year sentence for a total of a 4-year prison sentence as punishment for your crimes in this case. The court may have said the count numbers for the tampering with records incorrectly. That would be counts 39, 40, 41, 42, and 43, for a total sentence of 4 years in prison. The court is going to impose up to 3 years of discretionary post-release control. I'm also going to order that you make restitution forthwith to Sandusky County in the amount of $24,000. The court will also award judgment to Sandusky County in the amount of $24,000, representing an agreed amount in terms of the value of the services and items that were stolen from taxpayers of Sandusky County. I want to advise you that you cannot, you already know this, but you cannot possess a weapon in this case. The court's going to give you credit for 43 days previously spent in custody, and the court will order that any blood pressure medication that you're on or any thyroid medication that be taken, the prison authority allow you to take whatever prescribed medications that you have, which are non-narcotic in nature. All right, at this time I want to see the attorneys at sidebar. Just stay there for a minute. Well, you don't have to, no, don't bring a machine. I just want to see the attorneys. Just one point of clarification. Count 3, 11, and 15, which are counts of deception to obtain a dangerous drug, in which the court sentenced the defendant to 1 year in prison on each of those 2 counts were to run concurrently with counts 19, 27, and 29. I think I said that, but I'll say it again. Also, in terms of the $24,000 due to the taxpayers of Sandusky County, the court's going to order that that money be taken out of your OPERS retirement fund, so that the citizens of Sandusky can be made whole or partial. 43 days of credit in jail. Good luck to you.
Your Honor, just so it's clear, in case somebody does a computation later that don't seem to add up to 4, that will control the total of 4 years is what you intend. I presume it does.
Well,
I don't want to no talk to us, oh, by the way, it's really 6 or something. 4 is what you...
Well, it's going to be in the journal entry that'll be filed tomorrow,
okay.
So whatever's in the journal entry, the parole board always follows. Okay. And I do want to just say this again, Mr. Overmyer, if you are placed on post-release control in the future and you violate any conditions, the parole authority can impose additional sanctions, including additional incarceration equal to 1/2 of this court's sentence in increments of 9 months, so you know that. Also, since you're serving a term in which an official committed an offense of this nature, you're not going to be entitled to extra credit for classes, but I would suggest if you're genuinely interested in making your point that you want to change your behavior, I suggest you take advantage of every possible class you can in the penitentiary.
Can I ask a question?
All right, go ahead.
You talked about post-release control. How does that work?
You can talk to your attorney about post-release control. All right, the gag order that the court previously placed on the parties in this case is concluded. If you wish to talk to the media, you can. You don't have to. That is in your discretion. That's all. That concludes these proceedings.
Please rise. Court is now adjourned.